Africa must end overdependence on the developed world by prioritizing intra-African trade. Intra-African trade.
Intra-African trade. What does that mean?
Hi, I'm Catherine Mothani from Riara Girls High School, and I'm going to tell you what intra-trade is. Intra-trade, African intra-trade, is basically trade between African countries.
Trade between African countries.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Great Debaters Contest. This is Season 7, Nairobi edition. I'm your host, Austin Nyimbo.
And I am Mariam Bishar. Today on the Great Debaters Contest, Riara School faces off with Dandora Girls High School, and they are debating on a matter that has been plaguing the African continent since the post-independence era. Should Africa stop its over-reliance on the developed world by focusing on intra-Africa trade? We'll let the debaters take the stage now. Proposer number 1, you have 3 minutes.
Personally, I believe dependence leads to growth, but overdependence leads to secondary colonization, where a country is under power of a country despite independence. I'm Lydia Akinyi from Dandora Girls Secondary School. On to my first point, trade within Africa should be promoted because it encourages a sense of belonging in our own homeland as well as urbanization. Most of the African countries are developing countries. Kenya's main trading partners include Tanzania, Uganda, and even the famous South Africa. If we join hands and come together and build our industries, there is no need to depend on other country. On to my second point, Africa is rich in minerals. Talk of gold in Bunia, diamond in Rwanda, and not forgetting our soda ash in Kenya. We are also rich in food, like coffee and tea. Hence, when we put up many industries and work together in order to process our own, we will sell and benefit from each other. Quality of education. The level of our education development is high and serves as a strong basis of our future progress. There's in and out of graduates and our intellectuals. So when we put them and work together with them and educate them and improve our schools, there's no need to go to other countries and look for engineers and doctors to come and construct our roads or treat our patients. The use of bilateral trade. The essence of bilateral trade helps in exchange of investment and helps the countries to save, which also eliminates tax. How many enjoys when one is being paid a salary, then it's being... Okay, thank you.
Riara, you have 3 minutes to make your opening statements.
Africa, my motherland, is bleeding. She was starved by colonialism and has not yet healed, but been left to depend on the developed world. Faith Muthimbo, Riara Springs Girls High School. Overdependence. This is relying on something or somebody too much. Intra-African trade. This is trade among African countries. To prioritize. This is simply to focus on something alone. Africa, as we know it, is a large continent. Africa cannot involve itself in one trade, over 55 countries in this continent. Language barrier. We all know we were colonized by different superiors, each having their own language. How many of you can go to a French-speaking country and be conversant with the language? Not many. Lack of economic diversity. African countries focus on one agenda, in this case, agriculture and mining. It doesn't make sense for us to import what we already have. But intra-African trade is not the only way we can end overdependence, is it? In this case, I'll take tourism for an example. Tourism. Africa has the most beautiful mountains, landscapes, has the most beautiful beaches. Not alone, don't forget our climate itself. We have pyramids in Egypt, one of the only countries in the world with pyramids. We have Mount Kilimanjaro with the most beautiful snow-capped mountains. We have one of the 7 wonders of the world, which is the wildebeest migrating from Kenya to Tanzania. Tourism could really take us somewhere if you look at it in the right direction. Because if we rely more on tourism, then we could end over dependence on other developed world countries. You see, Africa needs to stop thinking that other countries or other developed worlds are what can help us. We need to think and know that we can also help ourselves. But we just need to look at it from another angle. We don't have to concentrate on intra-African trade alone. We can think about, such as I've mentioned, tourism. Because this is one of the sectors which, yes, brings a lot of foreign exchange, but we neglect it. We do not focus on it as much as we do as agriculture. So if our government or if Africa countries thought of developing other sectors instead of focusing in agriculture and mining, maybe we'd stop depending on the other worlds. Maybe they could depend on us. Maybe we could get somewhere, and maybe we could end over dependence on the other countries. Thank you.
Dandora, you have 3 minutes to give us your rebuttal.
Are you joining us when we say that we should stop over-dependence on the first world countries? I guess yes, because you've just said that in Egypt, we have plenty, we have good weather, we have good climate, which means, as for me, you're supporting us. On to my first point, bilateral trade. First, what is bilateral trade? Bilateral trade is the exchange in the investment, helps the country to save, as also eliminates task. I guess some of you here are workers. How many of you enjoy when your money is chopped just to pay the task? How many of you enjoy to pay the pay? I guess none of you, because the task is too much. So if we practice bilateral trade, it's going to eliminate the task that we pay. On to my second point. Africans should stop competing from each other. We should diversify on our resources and industries. That's why, even if you go to the first world countries, you can be able to spot a Nigerian woman. And why? Because of the African regalia. You can be able to spot them. And that's why we are told in the Kiswahili proverb that says, mwacha mila ni mtumwa. On to my third point. The intellectuals, the graduates we have in Kenya, all in Africa, let's use the skills that we all impact in the tertiary institutions. Because if Japan have oriented skills, we also can get them because they are human like us. We can be able to defeat them. We can be able to process our own things. We can be able to manufacture our own things. And don't forget, what a first world country can do, an African can do it better. Advantage of Africa trade can lead to the poverty reduction. Why? If we use our own intellectuals, if we use our own graduates, we are going not to depend on other countries. Thank you.
Riara Springs, you have 3 minutes for your rebuttal.
You asked if we are joining you, and you also answered yourself. But, yes, we are joining you, but we are disagreeing with the how. I mean, you are looking at intra-trade, which we do not believe in. We want other means to achieve the end of our dependence. But honestly, how can we do this if we have problems that they're facing and we've never slayed them? Tell me, has corruption been slayed in Africa? Corruption is like Ebola, an incurable disease. Look at Kenya, for example. Our leaders lack integrity. Recently, in the Afia House, billions of Kenyan shillings went missing. And when the doctors went on strike, asking for a 300% salary raise, what did they say? There's no money. Where did it go? No one knows. Africa does not own its own resources. Africa produces a tenth of the world's mineral products. But the sad thing is, we do not own it. Take Tatra Africa as an example. You see, in Kenya, it manages soda ash, but 60% of the profit goes to Tatra Africa. What if Kenya decided to manage it? What if 100% went to Kenya? Kenya would have then increased our GPD, gross domestic product, and this would stop, and this would be a step in reducing overdependence. Prioritizing the budget. Take Somalia as an example. 23 people are vying for the presidency seat. 23. Taking Somalia as a poor country and the most corrupt country in the world, then this is according to the Transparency International's annual review. That money that was for the rallies, that we were using for the campaigns, would have gone and improved the Somalia infrastructure. The lack of food in Somalia would have increased. Kenya, most of our money is also going to elections. If those funds were to be used in paying our debts, paying our public servants, mostly the doctors and the teachers, wouldn't we be somewhere? In general, what I am telling you is that we should look at all angles that could earn our country more money. But we can still interact with the developed countries and the development world without really or totally depending on them. Do not be so narrow-minded, for we are not over-depending, but a little help here and there isn't bad. Tamara Tino, Riara Girls High School.
Thank you to the audience for asking questions to the two teams on stage. The proposers have been challenged to give examples of African countries who copy each other and how that affects trade. And the opposition have been challenged to give other examples aside from Kenya when making their points. We'll have them respond now. Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes.
I'm Joyce Wanjiru from Dandora Girls Secondary School, and I would like to answer your question. We are not supposed to benefit from each other because our textile industries are going to go down in their finances because some of the countries might not giving good products, and that's why I say we are not supposed to benefit from each other. Furthermore, I would like to explain further about the issue of bilateral trade. Bilateral trade is the exchange of goods and services between two countries by investments which are eliminated from tariffs. Kenya's main trading partners include Uganda, Tanzania, and even Rwanda. If we practice bilateral trade, I don't see how we are going to depend on the first world nation for food, funds, donation, and even sponsorship. Secondly, education sector. In Africa, we should improve in our education sector so as to stop those Africans who are busy online trying to seek for sponsorship outside Africa and even to get fees for the tertiary universities in their continent. What about our medication? We should improve in medication so as not to plead the first world nations in donation of medicines and even donation of services.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes to respond to the audience.
First of all, Kenya est un pays africain, which in English translates to Kenya is an African country. You see, Kenya was just an example, but let me add some. Some of the most corrupt countries in the world include Somalia and South Sudan. In fact, according to the Transparency Index, their latest volume of 2016, more than 15 African countries are found in the top 50 most corrupt states of the world. Tamara Tieno gave you an example of Somalia. You see, Somalia has been ranked one of the poorest countries in the world. But then, an abomination. 23 people are vying for presidency. Do you understand the magnitude of the situation? Do you understand the funds that are going to campaigning? So yes, those are other examples of countries in Africa. However, we believe that since we are currently in Kenya, the audience would relate more to Kenya than it would to other African countries. Okay, moving on swiftly. How long have we had trade blocks in Africa? How long has the East African community been there? How long has COMESA been there? And how long has SATC been there? But these trade blocks are a fallacy. What have they really done for the countries? According to an African business blog, only 3% averagely of the revenue of African countries comes from intra-trade. How unfortunate. That really raises my eyebrows personally, because then it means that intra-trade is definitely not the way to go. You see, one thing I really like that the proposals are doing is they're helping us, because we are the ones supposed to be talking about different ways that can combat overdependence. But let me go to their point, actually. Education. Clearly, I really like education. My badge reads Principal Secretary for Academics. So let me tell you, I like to think of myself as a great scholar. Yet, if you ask me whether I'd study in Kenya 2 years from now, I'll tell you no. Why? Because I do not believe in the tertiary education systems yet. However, if Kenya and every other African country could improve its tertiary education, then a lot of African scholars would stay here, learn here, and develop here. Did you know that the expatriates of Africa send more money back home than the total foreign aid given to Africa? I find that so sad. However, I do not like narrow-mindedness. Why we are saying tourism is a way, prioritization of the budget is a way, slaying of corruption is a way, is because we are not narrow-minded people. The greatest eyesore in the world is a narrow-minded human. Humans who look at one thing. Why not attack all the angles, attack all sectors of the economy that could actually raise the GDP of Africa, help us pay off our debts of 3.2 trillion, and eventually end our overdependence on other countries? Why can't we do that? Why can't we provide to all the people of Kenya the basic needs, help them be happier, help us have a more productive nation, and eventually end our overdependence on the developed world?
We'll hear closing arguments now, beginning with Dandora Girls Secondary.
It's true. Or maybe I don't have any evidence to say that Somalia is the most corrupt country in the world. But anyway, even if it's the most corrupt country in the world, unity can make something that seemed to be impossible, possible. And if it's the most corrupt country in the world, or maybe if it's the most poorest country in the world, then we can make it the richest country in the world. Why? Because of unity. We have said that Africa, we are a developing country. So we can't just stop all of a sudden from depending from the first world countries. But I guess you're wrong. Why? Because of the proverb that says, practice makes perfect. And so, I would like to review the proverb that says, sticks in a bundle are unbreakable. So if Kenyans unite, I guess everything will be possible. Thank you.
Riara, you have 1 minute for your final statement.
My name is Divine Christie, and forget everything that we have said today. In fact, let me just stop using this notebook now. Just remember one thing. Africa is like a lady. She needs to be independent. In this man-eat-woman world, or should I say overdeveloped country, eat underdeveloped country kind of world, Africa must stand its ground. Africa must use its resources. Africa must use its skill and its brain power so that it can stop depending on developed countries that might not even have its best interest at heart. Africa is a country of pragmatic minds that know how to attack a problem from more than one angle. Pragmatic minds that are not narrow-minded. That is why I believe that we shouldn't just prioritize intra-African trade. I believe that we should look at every other sector of this economy that could raise our GDPs and eventually make Africa a bigger and greater continent. Thank you.
Dandora, we need to really know is the duties of every speaker. The first speaker came to stage, Lydia, and you immediately embarked on your debate, of course. Tension aside, we expected you to define, because you're the first speaker, to define the motion, which you didn't do. So you left your opponents to come and define it, and at times, if your opponents are defining the motion, then they can define it to suit their argument. Being the proposers, you would have set the stage by defining it so that they find themselves working with a definition. So Faith came from the other end and defined it, of course, nicely, I would say so, to suit what they wanted to argue about, and they formed their argument from that definition. So we need to learn the duties of every speaker. The first speaker's duty, the second speaker's, and the third speaker's. Of course, being our first time, those mistakes are not, could be there. So next time, I hope next year, let's not give up. Next year, let's be here. Let's learn more. Let's form debater clubs in school. Let's do it. Let's see what is really happening. Okay?
Faith, when you talk about language barriers, so language barriers will hinder Africans from conducting intra-trade. I didn't really get the argument properly unless you could come out clearly and give us an example of a country, give us an example of a people in which language was a hindrance to conducting trade. So in as much as you did fairly well, there's a problem in terms of understanding the motion, and there's a problem in terms of delivery. Divine, you're a very good public speaker, very good public speaker. But now the problem here is understanding and the content that you are delivering. I believe if only you did a bit of research, and if only you organized your arguments, then you could make an excellent public speaker. You already are a good speaker. The thing that was letting you down is the aspect of research and how you organized your content. Otherwise, I believe next time you're going to do much better than what you did today.
We'll go to the numbers now. Dandora Girls versus Riara School. Dandora Girls High School, the judges awarded you 50%. Let's give them a round of applause, please. And we always encourage our first-timers to learn and come back again for more debates. And Riara School, the judges awarded you 62%, making you the winners of this debate.
Congratulations to the two teams, and we also like to thank you, our audience, for participating, and urge our viewers back home. Engage with us on social media at Great Debaters EA and all our other social media platforms. I've been your host, Austin Nyambok.
And I'm Mariam Bishar. Thank you for watching.
Being the first time you have tried, having a 50, it's not a joke. And, a second time, you'll be the winners.
I found it fair, but I feel like we could have done better than we did today. But I'm sure next time we will be among the top.
We had high expectations for ourselves, so it's kind of definitely
it's like they didn't get.
It's like one thing an A, then getting a B flat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah, exactly.